Hello kind people of YouTube and welcome back to another video. I already talked about Coinbase getting ready to add XRP and 30 other coins to their platform earlier today in a separate video, but we have a lot of news to talk about today, so let's jump straight into it. Looking at the markets, we saw a significant slide yesterday followed by a recovery today. So that now if we're looking at 24-hour movements, there is very little change, with some coins even going up as compared to 24 hours ago. Most notably Ethereum, which has made the biggest gains in the last 24 hours. You can see that nicely on the 7-day graph here, which is pretty much the only coin that managed to exceed the pre-crash amount, or at least match it completely. But as you can see here, just over a day ago, all of these just slid down like crazy. And significant recovery since, but not all has been taken back. Bitcoin under $3,500, which I did say that 3,500 is not a number we should feel is very secure in my video yesterday. And now we seem to be safely below that. Next is 3,000. But aside from that, there's nothing all that extraordinary or interesting going on here. So let's look at a potential reason why the markets might have been sliding so suddenly. Because if you look at these 7-day graphs, it was a very sudden movement straight down by about, I believe it was about 9%, so a pretty big movement down. We got some more, at this point, rather annoying SEC news. And these seem to have coincided with this slide. SEC again delays decision on 1x SolidX Bitcoin ETF. Again. The US Securities and Exchange Commission extended a rule change proposal allowing the nation's first Bitcoin exchange-traded fund, pushing the decision deadline to next year. In a notice posted online, the securities regulator said it was extending the review period for the ETF to February 27th. The proposal was first submitted by money manager Van Eck and blockchain startup SolidX, who partnered with the CBOE exchange earlier this year. Under SEC rules, a decision on the proposal cannot be delayed any further, meaning the next notice must either approve or reject the ETF. So now we have it completely clear with no further possible delays. On February 27th, we will know if this ETF is approved or not. Now, a lot of people are expecting a rejection here, and I think there's a very strong possibility it will be rejected. But as annoying as these delays are, that means there is serious discussion around this going on in the SEC, which increases the chances of them coming out with an approval. Now, what really annoys me about this is that while this is definitely important, it is absolutely important that Bitcoin ETFs can get on the market in the US. That is a major step to making cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin in particular, but all cryptocurrencies by extension, more investor-friendly, more legitimate in the eyes of institutional investors. I get that, it is definitely important. What I absolutely hate is that the entire market is moved by only this, apparently. Because out of all the major news we have had in the last couple months surrounding cryptocurrencies and surrounding Bitcoin, only SEC news seem to actually have any effects on the market. And while they are important, I would never say that they're as important as Bakkt launching, as Nasdaq getting into the crypto game. Those are so much more important. All the stuff that is happening on some of these blockchains now, all the collaborations, the general sentiment, the infrastructures we're building, all the news that we're getting, everything except for SEC stuff is incredibly good and is building a bright future for crypto. But for some reason, the SEC's decisions on ETFs have such extraordinary influence over the markets, and it's ridiculous. We shouldn't care this much, because even if they were to reject these once again, sooner or later one will be approved. It's only a matter of time. And even if we were never to get one, that is just one country. Plenty other countries around on the planet. Like, America is obviously one of the most important markets for the crypto world, for the world in general, but it's not the only one. And we are seeing ETFs in other countries already. We just saw ETFs built on top of Bitcoin mining in Europe and in Asia just last week for $50 million each. So we're even getting ETFs, just not in America yet. So all of this, why does this matter so much to the markets? I've been asking this for a while because It's just baffling because yes, this is important. But if you're looking at the state of crypto and at all that is going on in the world, I would place this in like the lower areas of the top 10 most important things going on. It's definitely important. That is why I always talk about it when it's in the news. It is important. But it's not the most important thing that's going on. I think some major fintech companies getting their crypto products ready, getting their crypto exchanges ready, getting their other crypto funds ready, that is so much more meaningful than the SEC deciding on ETFs. And yet, this is the only thing that moves the markets. I will continue to be baffled by this. Take this as a bit of a plea to just pay attention to this, but don't let it move your outlook on the markets, because long term this doesn't matter. Sooner or later, a Bitcoin ETF will be approved, because even the arguments that they're providing now as to why a Bitcoin ETF might not be approved all have to do with the maturity of the markets. So in a couple of years, there will be no argument to reject these anymore at all. And either way, we're getting them in other countries, and sooner or later an ETF will be developed, and either the markets will be mature enough that they'll just say, yes, we'll approve, or maybe the people in the SEC will have changed, because new people are joining, old people are leaving, we have seen that before. Maybe a pro-crypto person is added to the SEC, that might be enough to change their mind. Or maybe an ETF that is different in how it handles the process might be approved. Sooner or later we're getting one. So why is this so incredibly important to everyone? I think some of it is probably our fault, and with us I mean crypto commentators and crypto news outlets. I wouldn't really count myself as one because I have a very small platform. I have under 2,000 subscribers. In the bigger scale, I'm nothing. But still, some of it is down to us just always talking about it. But like I said, it is important. It's just the importance has been overstated to the point where it's the only thing that moves the markets, when really it shouldn't matter that much. It should not matter that much. Anyways, on February 27th, we'll have some clarity here. Now, I think the chances are probably stronger that they will be rejected, but the longer this is dragged out, the higher the chances get that they will approve them, because this seems like they're really struggling to come to a solution here. Otherwise, we would have already gotten one. And of course, their decision to review ones that they had already rejected is also a sign in the direction that they are genuinely considering approving at least one of these. Now, something we've been seeing a lot is networks and dApps moving from Ethereum to other blockchains, and I just wanted to include this article as the latest example and something I've seen a lot. It's usually not things that get reported on too much because they're usually niche dApps. They're usually not very well-known dApps. But I've seen so much of this that we do need to talk about it a bit. In a tweet on the 25th of November, Justin Sun had urged Ethereum developers to migrate their tokens and projects to the Tron platform. His tweet went on to explain why they should do so, and this is his tweet. In bear market, Ethereum developers should migrate your token to Tron immediately. Number 1, zero transaction fees, no gas. Number 2, compatible to Ether, zero migration costs. Number 3, 2000 TPS. Number 4, Tron DEX listing. You can easily increase your token value 100% with high liquidity. Now, not all his arguments here hold water completely, but at least the first two, no transaction fees and compatible easy migration, those are absolutely legitimate. And then we have some projects actually doing it. One such project, known as BitGuild, has decided to migrate its Bitizens dApp and the world of Bitropolis from the Ethereum network to that of Tron. The team also announced that they will be taking the portal and the Bitizens game offline to facilitate the move. The team went on to request patience as they iron out the process. And here they list some possible reasons, and these are important. The announcement by BitGuild did not dwell much into why they chose to move the Bitizens dApp from the Ethereum network to that of Tron. However, the Tron network has been exhibiting exponential growth since the mainnet was launched mid of this year. Once the Tron virtual machine was activated in October, the sky was the limit for Tron in terms of attracting developers to create dApps on its platform. One unique feature on the Tron virtual machine is that it is compatible with both the Solidity programming language and the Ethereum virtual machine. This means that migration between the two platforms should not be too much of a hassle for an experienced developer. This is evident in the number of smart contracts that are active on the Tron network, 1119. There is also the additional fact that the Tron network can process up to 2000 transactions per second, that is 80 times faster than the Ethereum network. Doing the math, the Tron network can handle 172 million transactions in a day at maximum capacity. And there we pretty much have it. Ethereum is in a bit of a struggle right now with newer dApp-focused crypto ecosystems, blockchains coming out. A lot of them have some technological improvements over Ethereum, which isn't to say that Ethereum isn't spectacular, especially since Ethereum pretty much developed a lot of these things first. But a lot of these newer platforms, if we're looking at stuff like Tron, if we're looking at stuff like EOS, if we're looking at stuff like Kin, a lot of them are faster, are more scalable, and have cheaper transactions. And you know what's important for dApps? Processing a lot of small transactions cheaply. Ideally for free. And that is something that Tron can offer, that is something that EOS can offer, that Ethereum currently cannot offer. Now, Ethereum devs are hard at work improving their platform. For a while they had gotten pretty slow on that, but recently they have felt the pull. They are quickly advancing their platform to add additional features. But as it stands right now, Ethereum, while obviously very, very important, very well respected and well known, it is the number 3 cryptocurrency, of course. It now has a bit of an issue where some people are leaving it, and this is not the first I'm seeing. Like I said, it doesn't usually make front page news on the major crypto pages because it's usually not hugely well-known dApps. Because for starters, is any dApp hugely well-known? But I've seen this frequently. I see frequent articles like this, and it's never the other way around. They're always moving from Ether to Tron, or from Ethereum to Tron, or from Ethereum to EOS, or from Ethereum to Stellar, or from Ethereum to Kin. They're never moving the other direction. And this might turn into a serious issue for Ethereum because one of the big selling points was that with its smart contract capacities, and keep in mind, I'm not sure if it was the first, but it was one of the first, and definitely the first major cryptocurrency to even have these. So it is legendary in that sense. I'm not shading Ethereum, I'm not attacking Ethereum here. Ethereum did a lot of things first, it did a lot of them really well. But it's also a generation old. And these newer ones simply have advancements that Ethereum now needs to catch up with. And if it doesn't catch up with them, we might get into a situation where no one is really developing on Ethereum anymore because other networks are just so much more well equipped to handle their dApps. So there's work being done to make Ethereum more scalable, to make Ethereum cheaper, to make it faster, and to add additional software capacities onto it, capabilities. I'm very excited to see what is happening there, but until some of these updates are out, we will probably see more of this. We will see a lot of developers moving their dApps, moving their contracts over to other cryptocurrencies, to other networks. And I don't know what that will mean for Ethereum, because for a long time, Ethereum was the platform to develop on top of. But I'm not sure it even is that anymore at this point, and it's looking like it will lose its influence as that. Now, that's not the only thing that makes Ethereum interesting, but it is one of the core things. And if it loses that position, that will not be good. That might result in a very different landscape in the crypto world. And you have to keep in mind here, for these platforms that exist primarily or in part to have dApps running on top of them, ultimately, the question of which one will dominate in the long term will probably be decided by the first of these that creates a mainstream dApp. We have not seen a mainstream dApp yet. We have seen dApps that were relatively popular and interesting in the cryptocurrency world. But we have not seen a single dApp, not a single application that is decentralized and built on top of a blockchain that has had mainstream success outside of the crypto world. Sooner or later that will happen. And the first time that happens, whichever platform that is running on will probably become the major platform for decentralized applications. It will have significant gains in value, and it will be one of the top cryptocurrencies. And with so many moving away from Ethereum to Tron, to EOS, to Stellar, to Kin, to whatever else, it's looking like Ethereum might not actually be that. A lot of people thought it would definitely happen on Ethereum, but that is looking less and less likely with every passing day. Now, I think Ethereum can turn this around if they push out a lot of upgrades, and one upgrade is coming pretty soon. But as it looks right now, other cryptocurrencies are looking more interesting for developing. And even moving from one to another, that is a big decision to make. Now, we talked before about how Bitcoin, while the underlying technology, the software, is completely decentralized, there are ways to centralize it, and that is by holding a lot of it. And we frequently get news about individual people having a certain amount, and now we have some about one company that holds over 1% of total Bitcoin in circulation. Bitcoin Investment Trust, sponsored by Grayscale Investments, according to recent research by DR, shows that the trust has been accumulating Bitcoin in 2018 despite the brutal bearish market. Grayscale Bitcoin Investment Trust kicked off the month of December under $1 billion for the first time since its inception in 2013. According to their research published on December 3rd, the total Bitcoin holdings for Grayscale as of December was 203,000, and when compared to the 17.4 million Bitcoin in circulation, it controls over 1.16% of the total. Now that's pretty much all we really need to read here, but just think about this for a moment. Especially, a lot of people want cryptocurrencies to become the world currency. Now, I'm not sure if Bitcoin is likely to become that, but I'm very unsure about any cryptocurrency ultimately becoming that, because I don't think we will ever see such a thing as a one world currency. But if that were to happen, just imagine if like 10 companies hold 1 to 2% of the total supply each. That would be a social upper class of the type we have never seen. They would have total control over the world with that kind of wealth and that kind of control over the network. And now keep in mind here, they hold 200,000 out of the 17.4 million in circulation. But there are actually way fewer than those in actual circulation. Because do you know how many Bitcoin are lost or have been or were on wallets that have been destroyed at some point? How many people bought Bitcoin in 2008, 2009, 2010 when they were worth nothing, bought thousands of them at once, put them on some computer and forgot about them, and lost their ways of accessing them? This is way more than 1.16 of the total actual circulating Bitcoin. Like, I've seen different estimates, but most of the ones I have seen range from 10 to 13 million Bitcoin are actually in circulation. If we just assume the worst here, that only about 10 million Bitcoin are really in circulation and that the rest is actually lost, that means they control over 2% of the total market. And they're still buying. If you see here, they're increasing their holdings by like 3 or 4% every single month. And that's not the only company. I think the Winklevoss twins also hold over 1%. And there's almost certainly other companies, there are almost certainly banks, financial players who hold massive amounts. And then we know that over 50% of Bitcoin mining is centralized in China, in just one country. And this should give you a pause, because these are not coins that are locked away. These are coins that are accessible and then can be used to flood the market or to manipulate the market in any way they want at any time. And if you want cryptocurrency to be a democratic space where everyone has equal access, where everyone has a chance, it should worry you that one company holds over 1% of the total, likely over 2% of the total in circulation, and is gaining even more of that. That is the kind of control that we have never seen in the world. Even the richest people on the planet don't have 1% of the total wealth existing on the planet. This is crazy. And other cryptocurrencies are also facing this. And some cryptocurrencies have even higher percentages of the total supply held by individual people or companies. Those are usually planned to be put into circulation though, slowly but surely, or are put in escrow, where they can't be used to mess with the markets. These are just being held. And to me this is worrying. This isn't to single out Bitcoin here, because this is probably happening in most cryptocurrencies. But you need to keep these things in mind when you're thinking of cryptocurrencies as this revolutionary tool that is going to dismantle how wealth is currently spread across the world. Because the way I look at this shows me that Bitcoin is just as much, if not more, controlled by the super rich. The 1% of the 1% have even more control in the crypto world than they have in the traditional world. And that's not an attack on crypto to say that. Because this was always going to happen. It's just something that you need to keep in mind with how you're thinking about these, how you're framing them. That one company alone has over 1% of Bitcoin, and there are likely various companies who have holdings like this. And it's not easy for us to tell this unless they tell us, because they could have them spread out over a variety of wallets, and there would be no way for us to track that they all belong to the same company. But there are likely more cases like this. So very few people likely control the vast majority of circulation, and most normal average people might hold a fraction of a Bitcoin, or the equivalent in altcoins. You have to keep in mind here, you are acting in the kind of system that is also the case that you might be protesting against by getting into crypto. You are getting into a system that has a similar situation. The technology is decentralized, but the supply is not. But let's look at some more positive news, and let's look at let's look at a potential future outlook for how important blockchain will be, with a poll that found that over 1/3 of German big businesses find blockchain tech as impactful as internet. And keep in mind, we live in the internet age. The internet is so defining for the time from the 1990s to now that they're considered the most defining aspect of this era. So let's read this article. According to a recent survey, over 1/3 of big businesses in Germany consider blockchain technology as revolutionary as the internet. In addition to artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, blockchain technology is one of the current 3 areas of development with tremendous potential, the survey reports. Conducted by the German Federal Association for Information Technology, Telecommunications and New Media, the survey revealed that overall 15% of German companies think blockchain will change society and the economy as much as the internet. Larger companies with 500 or more employees were more than twice as likely to hold that opinion at 36%. And this is pretty much all we need here, but this is very interesting because what you see here is that large companies have a distinctly different outlook here than smaller companies do. And why is that? I think there's a very simple reason for that. These large companies, they have dedicated tech staff, they have researchers, they have the best people. They are really tuned into what will happen in the next couple of years. They are cooperating with other huge companies around the world. They are developing the technologies of the future. And if over 1/3 of them say that blockchain is the future, that blockchain will revolutionize us in a way that we haven't seen since the internet. And just keep in mind, how you live now is so incredibly different from how you lived in the 90s. And that is almost all down to the internet. You wouldn't have smartphones without the internet. You wouldn't be watching me on YouTube right now without the internet. You wouldn't be in contact with your friends who live in other countries except for maybe occasionally calling them or sending them a letter without the internet. You wouldn't be getting news the moment it happens without the internet. You wouldn't be having decentralized information systems and decentralized exchange systems without the internet. You wouldn't be able to communicate in a way that isn't controlled by the mass media without the internet. The internet absolutely revolutionized everything that we do. And now you see 1/3 of big companies that really change the way the course of human history goes. These are companies that will develop the technologies that we will all be using in a couple of years. Think we're on the cusp of seeing this again. And with that extremely positive outlook. Because what this means, of course, while blockchains can work without cryptocurrencies, they often go hand in hand with them. And more blockchain adoption will mean a bright future for the crypto markets. With this extremely positive outlook, I will let you guys go for today. As always, thank you so much for watching. You can read all these articles by clicking the links in the description. In the description, you will also find my social media links and ways to support this channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should definitely change that, and I'll be back with another video tomorrow.